What's cracking, yo? Welcome back to Boo TV. Appreciate you for stopping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and let's get into the topic for today. What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? Back with another Larry Bird / Michael Jordan reaction video. The best Larry Bird versus Michael Jordan story ever told. This one submitted by none other than Sharon Bird, who I just got confirmation that Sharon Bird is not related to Larry Bird. There is no relation there. So, Sharon, I appreciate the recommendation as well. I think some other people might have recommended this one, but I couldn't find you going back through my history, so I apologize if you did recommend this one as well, and I appreciate the recommendation. Raw, real reaction. I've never seen this video, so I don't know what it's about, what the story is going to be, but given that it is on the channel's Prime Larry Bird, I feel like it's going to be about Larry Bird, the fact that Mike could never beat Bird. Mike never beat Bird. Something along those lines. I don't know the specifics. There's like more to it, more context, more rich, inside stuff, inside story stuff. But I'm curious to find out. This is going to be interesting, and I can't wait to see it. Let's check out the reaction.
NBA Hall of Famer James Worthy, who played against both Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, said, "I'd much rather play against Michael Jordan than Larry Bird. Jordan made you look slow, but Bird made you look stupid."
I've heard that.
Look, I'm not here to convince you that Larry Bird is better than Michael Jordan. I'll just present to you the facts and let the NBA legends who actually played against both of them tell you what they think.
People always ask me who's the hardest player I've ever had to guard. And there was Michael Jordan, George Gervin, the late, great Mike Mitchell. I mean, so many players. I always say Larry Bird. And I say this for the reason because when Michael passed the basketball, he kind of hung on his shorts and he sit off to the side. With Larry, when he passed the basketball is when he became more dangerous. He was either setting a pick, coming off a pick, catching the ball, passing the ball. So he was the one you always had to stay attentive to the whole 24 seconds of that offensive play for the Celtics. And you know what? Oh, he's going to get an offensive rebound. He was going to do something to help his team have the best chance of scoring at that point. So I always say as him, he didn't need the basketball to affect the game.
To the untrained eye, Michael Jordan was light years better than Larry Bird, simply because his scoring numbers were better. But in actuality, it was much closer than that because Bird affected the game in so many ways.
I saw Larry Bird.
Pause. Just so you guys know where I stand, I think Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time. But for anybody that thinks there are light years between Mike and between Larry, you're entitled to your opinion, but I regret to inform you that you're wrong. There are not light years between the two players. They are both very much elite, and their careers, no one can walk in each other's shoes. They each had a unique career. It is what it is, but player for player, listen, they weren't that. The very different players, both impact the game very different ways. But to say, Mike is way better than Larry, it would be just false. And Mike would be the first one to tell you. All right, let's get it popping.
One night in Phoenix, they were losing big time at the half. And they come out in the third quarter, and Larry did not take a shot, but dominated the game. He had 7 assists in the third quarter, and they came back and won the game. He could affect the game without taking a shot. Who else can you say that about to that degree? Nobody. Michael could never do that. Never. Michael had to have the ball.
Here's a 1986 magazine on the NBA. And remember, this is a league with Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Charles Barkley, Isaiah Thomas, Hakeem Olajuwon, Moses Malone, and Dr. J. And in a league with all of these all-time great players, everyone agreed that Larry Bird was the best, because in 1984, 1985, and 1986, Larry Bird won MVP back to back to back. And in the 1986 playoffs, Larry Bird finally faced Michael Jordan head to head. And in game 1, Michael dropped a spectacular 49 points. But Larry Bird had an all-around game with 30 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, and 3 steals to lead the Celtics to a victory. By game 2, MJ had a revelation.
And this is game 2 of the best of 5 first-round action, and the Celtics will try to make it 2 in a row over the Bulls.
We really have to play a complete basketball game. I don't think one man can beat the Boston Celtics. I don't think one man can beat the Boston Celtics.
But he sure did
try.
Because Jordan turned on God mode and broke the record for the most points ever scored in a playoff game.
Lead in the first half of the game against the Celtics Thursday. Jordan trying to fake Bird, can't do it. Hits the jumper, but Bird played pretty well defensively against Jordan.
I know we started Dennis Johnson out on him, and then we went with Danny Ainge, myself, then Bill Walton, and we was trying to run him to help all the time, but he had his outside shot going so well that he really didn't need to penetrate that much.
Jordan hits it, 56 for Jordan, and that ties the Chicago Bulls all-time leader. Jordan with 8 on the clock. Jordan ties the game.
Oh, boy.
63 points, and you're looking at an all-time record.
Oh, boy.
Michael Jordan.
But it was an incredible playoff performance. I've never seen it before, and I had never seen it after. That wasn't Michael Jordan out there. It was God disguised as Michael Jordan.
But Larry Bird left with the most important statistic of all.
W.
The W.
10 on the clock. Bird, pick and roll parry. Victory for the Boston Celtics to take a 2-0 lead over Chicago in their best of 5.
Michael Jordan didn't beat.
Pause. Sorry. So one thing people forget that nowadays in the NBA, when the teams have their own tunnels, back in the day, everybody went through the same tunnel. So I love seeing when the teams are all mixed together, going through the tunnel, what their interactions are with each other. Sometimes it's quite comedy and I don't want to say heartfelt, but cool to see. But yeah.
Larry Bird. You showed Michael Jordan going between his legs one time in the highlights, against Larry Bird. And that was the game he got 63.
That's when he dropped 63 on Bird, yes.
But if memory serves me correct, they got swept. No, not lost. They got swept. Okay?
That's true.
Even though he dropped 63, we stepped all in his ass, did we not? I rest my case.
Larry Bird went on to win his 3rd championship that year. And the following year, when Larry faced MJ in the playoffs, it happened again.
Inside, Larry Bird against Banks, rubs him around a Perry screen, drives it down the lane, and lays it in with a right hand. Michael Jordan with 30 points in this game, so he was 30 or better in all 3 playoff games. Bird's got 31 in the game and 14 in the 4th quarter. Bullseye. Boston has kept it in good hands in the 4th quarter. It's been Bird, and that's about it. Final score in Chicago Stadium. The Boston Celtics sweep the Bulls out 105-94. Too much Celtic talent, too much Celtic experience for a Bulls team lacking in both areas.
Yes, Larry Bird in back-to-back years swept Michael Jordan in the playoffs. So if Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time, but Michael Jordan never beat Larry Bird, then what does that make Larry Bird? Now, to be fair, at that point, Michael Jordan didn't have his best teammate ever, Scottie Pippen, yet. When Scottie Pippen arrived, the battles were closer and more intense. And later in the video, I'll let you see exactly what happened when Larry Bird faced a prime Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Because Larry Bird did something so miraculously impressive, no other man in the history of basketball can say they've done. But after Bird swept Jordan back-to-back years in the playoffs, that very next year in 1988, Michael Jordan had statistically the best season ever, where he won the scoring title at 35 points per game, the steals title, the MVP, the defensive player of the year, the all-star game MVP, and the dunk contest. He faced Larry Bird 4 times that year, and this is how it went. Game 1, tough battle, Bird wins. Game 2, MJ has a historic 50-point game to win by 10. Game 3, Larry's revenge. After that previous loss, I'm sure Larry Bird had that rematch circled on his calendar, because he ended up with 33, 8, and 7 and blew MJ out by 30 points. Game 4, MJ had an impressive performance with 39 points and 8 assists, but Larry Legend had 44 points and 10 rebounds, but most importantly, a win versus Michael Jordan in his statistically best season ever. And though Michael Jordan didn't face Bird again that year in the playoffs, Jordan did face Isaiah Thomas and the Detroit Pistons. And I'll let Isaiah Thomas tell you exactly how he recalls that year and the rest of the 80s.
So Michael Jordan in the 80s, the best year that he had was he was the MVP of the league and the defensive player of the year. I believe that was in 88.
Yes.
We
88.
beat them 4-1. I'm gonna say that again. 4-1. They won one
May I
game,
respond?
Stephen A. And he never beat Larry Bird. He never beat Magic and Kareem. He never won. And all I'm saying is in the 80s, what I remember in the 80s, it was Philadelphia with Dr. J, Magic, Kareem, Bird, Michael Jordan. He was a non-factor.
A non-factor.
Ooh, you're gonna say a non-factor? Oh, I can't go that far. No, Jordan and the Bulls did not really arrive until the 90s. They dominated the 90s. The 80s was Jordan's growth as a player, trying to take his athleticism and his skill, which was at an all-time high. It got better as he adjusted his game and pulled out more bags of tricks. But then taking that and then the basketball IQ, with time you start to play the game more with your mind and your basketball intelligence as you start to figure the game out, rhythm, momentum, sets, plays, reading the room, for lack of a better word, things like that. So he had to get his basketball IQ and his knowledge and how to play the game mentally, playing chess, not checkers, on par with his skill set and his athleticism. And it wasn't probably until the late 80s, 90s. I mean, he won his first championship, 90, 91, 91, 92, 93, 96, 97, 98. So, no, from a championship player / championship player accolades perspective, 90s was Jordan's era. But the 80s was the growing pains and finally getting a coach and a roster together that could complement Mike, figuring all that out. But to say Mike was a non-factor, I ain't gonna go that far. I won't go that far. Did he fail to get to the finals during those times? Absolutely. But I can't call the man a non-factor. Oof. I mean, he would make you work for those victories. Whether you swept him, you had to game plan for this man.
Is this your GOAT? But after Isaiah Thomas swept MJ, he did go on to beat Larry Bird in 6 games. And many people touted the Detroit defense for holding Larry Bird to under 20 points per game. But what many don't include in that story is that Larry Bird was noticeably injured with painful bone spurs in both feet. So only because of injuries, for the first time in 5 seasons, Larry Bird would not make the NBA Finals.
Respect to Larry Bird, playing through those injuries, and had he been healthy, that series could have went differently with Detroit. I also say this: even at this time in the '80s, Larry Bird was probably a far superior basketball player in terms of basketball knowledge and IQ and how he saw the game, how he read the game, than Mike was in the '80s too. Right? Larry Bird had a significant psychological / intelligence edge over Michael Jordan and affecting the game. So I'm not walking around. Larry wasn't no scrub. Even though he was older, Larry was still elite. Jordan didn't have it all here yet. Still a smart player, but he wasn't on Larry's level with that basketball IQ. Not yet.
Starting the following year, Larry Bird had season-ending surgery on both feet after playing only 6 games. But sadly, it only got worse because that following offseason, Larry Bird broke his back and was never the same again.
But still damn good.
Even as Larry Bird's entire body betrayed him, for some reason, he always played well against Michael Jordan. Almost like he had a personal vendetta against Jordan. And I think I know why. When Michael Jordan was in college, he actually played an exhibition game against Larry Bird. Jordan and a bunch of college players, while preparing for the 1984 Olympics, faced Larry Bird and a bunch of NBA stars. The goal was to toughen the college kids up before they headed to the Olympics. So during pre-game warm-ups, when Jordan chased the loose ball to the other end of the court, Larry Bird picked the ball up. But instead of handing it to Jordan, Bird kicked the ball over Jordan's head to the opposite end of the court. And I guess you could say Michael Jordan took that personally.
Now look at my really. Oh, so that's how you're gonna play it. You gonna do this? Okay, fine. That's all I needed. That's all I needed for him to do that, and it became personal.
Oh shit!
Michael Jordan dominated that game. A young Michael Jordan actually carried a team full of college players past a prime Larry Bird and a bunch of NBA players. Michael Jordan won the battle, but Larry Bird won the war. I think Larry Bird took that loss personally because Jordan never really got the best of Larry Bird ever again. When Larry Bird finally returned to the court after missing basically an entire season with foot surgery and a back injury, he faced prime Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen in a regular season game. The teams went back and forth.
Bagley against Paxson, 10 on the shot clock. Jordan on Bird. Quick feed into
pass.
Paxson for the layup. Larry Bird has KO'd the read. Jordan steal. Scottie Pippen ahead to Jordan. Michael for the dunk. Bird against Pippen. Bird working on Pippen one-on-one.
Give me that.
Hits the fadeaway.
Snatch your soul,
With
boy.
10 seconds to go, it was a tie game. The Celtics had the ball, and the Bulls put their 2 best defenders, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, both on Larry Bird because everyone knows who the ball is going to. And then this happened.
Let's see if they wind it all the way down. Inside
Bird low, Bird low.
Bird
Can't
low.
double yet. Now you can quickly. Bird's jumper, good. 3.6 seconds left. Larry Bird gives the Boston
Mike came over for that. Mike jumped high as hell
lead.
too.
Everybody in this
Still not
building
enough.
had to know what was going on. Michael came over to help out. Celtics lead with 3.6 seconds here, 102 to 100.
A game-winning shot while being double-teamed by both Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, 2 of the best defenders of all time.
True, man. Larry was
Somehow the
special.
word clutch doesn't even begin to describe the greatness of Larry Bird when the game was on the line. but maybe a quote from NBA Hall of Fame coach, executive, and former player Pat Riley can explain. In an interview, when comparing Larry Bird and Michael Jordan's clutchness, Pat Riley said this iconic quote, "If I had to choose a player to take a shot to save a game, I'd choose Michael Jordan. If I had to choose a player to take a shot to save my life, I'd take Larry Bird." As Larry Bird was on his last legs and Michael Jordan was starting his dynasty in 1991, Larry Bird mustered up enough strength to battle MJ again in one of the last great duels between the two.
Gamble came up with the steal.
Here's Bird. Yes. He was met on a switch by Jordan, and there 69, Chicago 67. Jordan eluding a triple team. Reggie Lewis. Larry Bird.
This battle between two all-time greats came down to the wire. In overtime, it was a tie game with 0.4 seconds on the clock, and the Chicago Bulls had the ball.
Bird's turnaround is nasty.
Now to throw in 0.4 of a second. And here it is, Jordan with the play. Yes! But it's waved off. Will not count. Mike Mathis said no. Did not beat the clock.
Ooh, he almost had it. After Jordan's possible game winner was waved off, Larry Bird, on 4 straight possessions in double overtime, did this.
Jordan.
It's great to hear all these coaches talk about they're really concerned as Bird hits a little fadeaway. They're really concerned about the minutes building up. They want to be fresh going into the playoffs until the game.
Overtime number 2. Bird. Yes. Larry Bird heating it out to go in the second overtime. Bird with the foul and hits. Bird 45 to go in the second overtime. Bird fires. Yes.
The crowd couldn't help but.
I remember watching that in a recent video we looked at. Mike, after overtime, Mike pretty much went more or less cold. Or after regulation, Mike went pretty much cold, and Larry was just lighting their ass up, boys. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Larry was old ass Larry Bird, and he never needed, even in his heyday when he was younger. He wasn't as athletic as some players, so he didn't need athleticism. So even in his older age, he still had his craft. As long as he could muster up the strength to fight through the injuries and get his body to come along with his mind, Larry was going to dominate. And he did.
But chant the name of the greatest player of all time.
Shook his head and said, "This guy's too much."
And the chant of Larry. Dee Brown beat John Paxson off the pitch. And the second overtime, and that will do it. The Boston Celtics in double overtime and defeated the Chicago Bulls 135 to 132 in a wild one.
The Celtics held on to win that game, but that year, Michael Jordan won his first championship versus Magic Johnson in the finals, and his dynasty had officially begun.
Larry and I were talking, and Michael walks in, and he says, "There's a new sheriff in town." And we both hit each other like, well, he's not lying.
Larry Bird retired after that next season, but not before he took the court with Michael Jordan one last time. Except this time, it would be on the same team.
That's beautiful.
In what many would call the greatest team ever assembled, the 1992 Dream Team.
And rebounded by Jordan.
Perez may have realized that may be his best opportunity to get an open look in transition.
Magic with the pass that misfired. Jordan with the behind the back save. Here's Bird. Yes.
And you just knew
That had to be amazing to see.
not going to miss that shot after the great save by Michael Jordan.
Larry, I hate that you're retiring. Thank goodness. I'm glad. I'm tired of seeing your face. But a lot of sad memories to me, but I enjoyed you tremendously. I wish you a lot of luck, and I think you had a very wonderful career, even though you probably ruined a lot of my successful games against the Boston Celtics. And I'll see you somewhere along the road, somewhere playing golf.
Even though he dropped 63, we stepped all in his ass, did we not? I rest my case.
So yeah, no, that's absolutely true, man. And Mike's, one thing I love about Jordan. Jordan keep it real, and he's super humble, and he tells it how it is. He's like, hey man, get the hell out of here. I'm tired of seeing your ass. It's a new sheriff in town, but god damn it, my career probably could have went a little bit differently had I been able to get past you a couple of those years. He said, Larry, you ruined some of my moments, man. You ruined some of my moments. That's funny. That's good, competitive. That's a mutual respect, competitive comment. Mutually, it's respectful. It's competitive, and it's like basketball lingo. You know what I mean? Sports lingo, competitive lingo. When you see another great that you've battled with for so long rise off, run into the sunset, and you drop a comment like that, get your ass out of here. Tired of seeing you. That's a good moment though, that they shared on the Dream Team, their last time being on the court together on the same team. That I seen that play before. Mike saving it behind the back to Larry, baseline switch, but it's hype, man. I couldn't imagine watching that one live. That would have been crazy. That would have been crazy. But yeah, like I said, Mike's time was the 90s, the 80s was growing pains, but you appreciate winning more. You appreciate those championships more. The taste is much more savory after you've gone through the heartbreak and the hardships which have been bestowed upon you over time as you stumble and you pick yourself up, and you try to maneuver, you try to figure things out, jumping through hurdles until you finally break through, and it makes that moment so much sweeter because all of the heartache, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the hard work, the hours spent in the gym, all that culminated, and you finally make it. Larry Bird, Pistons, the other greats that provided roadblocks for Mike on his journey, those are all necessary to get that feeling, to appreciate it on a whole nother level. But yeah, Mike was phenomenal. In the 80s. He was a lot to deal with. He was an absolute show. He's a monster, but he still hadn't completely figured the game out. And they were still going through a whole lot of roster changes. And even when Pippen came in, Pippen wasn't contributing at an all-star level, like off rip. Like Pippen had to be brought along. People just think when Pippen got there, it was like, yeah, the team improved, but Pippen hadn't really evolved to the player that he would be in those championship years with the Chicago Bulls. He wouldn't. Even the year before they won the championship, I think they lost to Detroit, and that was the Scottie Pippen migraine game, I think, and then Mike had to labor through that one without Pip and narrowly lost. They probably would have won a championship that year had Scottie played. Honestly, my opinion. But hey, that's how history was written, and we can't go back and rewrite history. Whole bunch of what ifs. What if this, what if that? But you can apply that to a lot of players everywhere. You look at what Larry Bird went through with his serious injuries. And you kind of figure, hey, what? Hey,
For his injuries. Check it out.
God, I didn't even know I had Siri on. I don't use that. I don't even use that function. What would Larry's career have been had he had a more or less completely healthy body? I tell you what, Larry would have probably played an extra 4 or 5 years. Larry probably would have did 18 to 20 years if he had a healthy body. Then what would his career would have been? Makes you think, right? Sometimes it's just how the cookie crumbles. Some players, unfortunately, have their careers and derailed a little bit because their bodies don't hold up for whatever reason. Sometimes it's no fault to them. It's just the hand you were dealt. It's just the hand you were dealt. Those are the careers I hate to see the most. The ones where it's like, man, you just got dealt a bad hand from this perspective or from that perspective. While you see other players, play very long careers and their bodies hold up more or less just fine, and they're able to capitalize on it. But I always think about players like Grant Hill. I think Grant Hill would have been a top 10, top 15 player all time had his body not failed on him. Tracy McGrady would have probably been a top 15 player had his body not failed on him. Bird, even with his body failing on him, he's an all-time great. You're right. So that tells you how great Larry Bird was, even with a failing body. Some other players, Kobe, I would have liked to see what Kobe would have done before tearing his Achilles, breaking his knee, and breaking his shoulder all within 3 years. Because he was, at the time, how we're saying LeBron, we've never seen a player play this long, this deep in their career. That's what they were saying about Kobe, year 15, year 16. We had never seen a player be that elite this late in their career. And then torn Achilles, and then he was never the same after that. So I always wondered what his career would have been had he not had that devastating injury that he never really recovered from completely. There's a lot of players like that. It's just unfortunate, Just unfortunate. Anyhow, you guys let me know what you think about, is Larry Bird your GOAT? Is Michael Jordan your GOAT? Who is your GOAT? Do you prefer Larry? Do you prefer Mike? If you think Larry's better than Mike, let me know why. If you think Mike's better than Larry, let me know why. I would love to hear your opinion. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out our other reaction video playlists, our Larry Bird playlist, our Michael Jordan playlist, LeBron, Kobe, everybody. Check out all the playlists, all the videos. We got more stuff. Drop a comment if you want me to if you want to recommend something. It could be anything. And just let me know. All right? We out, baby.